Wyoming, Delaware, or Nevada? If you've been researching where to register your company, you've probably seen all three come up over and over again. And depending on who you ask, you'll get three completely different answers. Some people say Delaware is the gold standard. Others swear by Wyoming for privacy and low cost. And then there's Nevada, which gets marketed as this tax-free paradise. So which one is actually the best? Well, the answer is not as simple as people make it sound. Hi, my name is Bobby Casey. I'm the founder of BusinessAnywhere.io. I'm an international tax lawyer, and for over 20 years, I've been helping entrepreneurs all over the world choose the right company structure, optimize their taxes, and avoid costly mistakes. And in this video, I'm going to break down the real differences between Wyoming, Delaware, and Nevada. And more importantly, help you figure out which one actually makes sense for your situation. Now, before we dive into each state, there's something really important you need to understand. Choosing the best state is not about picking the most popular option. It's about choosing the one that aligns with how your business actually operates. Because what works for a venture-backed startup is very different from what works for a solo online business. And this is where a lot of people get it wrong. All right, let's start with Delaware. Delaware is probably the most well-known state for incorporation, and there's a reason for that. It has a very established legal system, especially when it comes to business law. There's something called the Court of Chancery, which focuses specifically on corporate cases, and because of that, there's a lot of legal precedent. So for large companies, investors, and startups planning to raise capital, Delaware makes a lot of sense. It provides predictability, it provides structure, and it's widely accepted in the investment world. But here's the thing. If you're not raising venture capital, if you're not building a Silicon Valley-style startup, a lot of those benefits don't really apply to you. In fact, you may just end up paying higher fees and dealing with more complexity than necessary. So while Delaware is great for certain types of businesses, it's not automatically the best choice for everyone. Now let's talk about Wyoming. Wyoming has become extremely popular, especially among digital entrepreneurs, freelancers, and small business owners. And honestly, for good reason. First of all, Wyoming has very low costs. The annual fees are minimal compared to states like Delaware. Second, it offers strong privacy protections. You're not required to publicly list all members or owners in the same way as some other states. And third, it has a relatively simple and business-friendly regulatory environment, which means less bureaucracy and fewer headaches. Now, for most online businesses, especially if you're running a remote operation, Wyoming tends to be one of the most practical choices. It gives you the structure you need without adding unnecessary complexity or cost. Now let's look at Nevada. Nevada often gets marketed as a no-tax state. And technically that's true at the state level. There's no state income tax. But here's where things get a little misleading because your tax obligations don't just depend on where your company is registered. They depend on where you live, where you operate, and where you're considered a tax resident. So just registering in Nevada doesn't automatically mean you pay zero tax. In addition to that, Nevada tends to have higher fees compared to Wyoming, both in terms of setup and ongoing compliance. So while it does offer some privacy benefits, for many small business owners, it doesn't provide enough additional value to justify the extra cost. Now here's where things really come together, because the question isn't just which state is best. The real question is, what are you trying to achieve? Are you raising capital? Are you running a lean online business? Are you operating internationally? Because those factors matter far more than the state itself. Let me give you a simple way to think about it. If you're building a startup and planning to raise venture capital, Delaware is usually the right choice. If you're running an online business, consulting, SaaS, or anything location independent, Wyoming is often the most efficient option. And if you're considering Nevada, you really want to evaluate whether the higher cost actually provides any real benefit for your situation. Now there's one more thing I want to point out, and this is a big one. Where you register your company is only one piece of the puzzle. Because if you live in a high tax state or you're operating in a specific jurisdiction, you may still have to register there as a foreign entity, which means you don't actually avoid those local requirements. So simply choosing Wyoming, Delaware, or Nevada doesn't override the rules of where you physically operate. And this is where a lot of people get tripped up. They think, I'll just register in Wyoming and avoid everything. But in reality, you still need to consider your personal tax residency, your operational footprint, and how your business is structured overall. So if we step back and summarize this, Delaware is ideal for startups and companies seeking investment. Wyoming is often the best fit for small businesses, digital entrepreneurs, and remote operations. Nevada can work in certain cases, but it's often overhyped compared to what it actually delivers. At the end of the day, there is no one-size-fits-all answer. The best state is the one that fits your business model, your goals, and your overall strategy. Not just the one you saw recommended in a blog or a forum, and if you want help figuring that out, that's exactly what we do. Through our Digital Nomad Kit, we help you choose the right jurisdiction, register your company, set up your business infrastructure, and make sure everything is structured properly from the beginning, so you're not guessing, and you're not fixing mistakes later. You can find more information in the links below. Hope this gives you some clarity, and I'll see you in the next video.